He is Peter King here on the Rich Eisen Show in person here in New York City, who just absolutely knocked me off my socks, fittingly, I guess, that you just told me. Again, I'm a native New Yorker.
You would think
born in Brooklyn.
Big Yankee fan,
Yeah. You want to turn his mic on, Mike Del Tufo? You are? Okay.
I'm not hearing him.
Okay. Is his microphone on over there?
Is my microphone on?
Nope.
Okay.
No, we're not getting it.
You want to turn on his live? You want to do that? Here on the Rich Eisen Show?
Testing.
There we go.
There we go. Very
There
good.
we are. Okay.
You raising your
No,
hand? On
that
one?
was a,
Okay, very good. Very good. But before we get to the Honda Insider Report, talking NFL, I'm born in Brooklyn, raised in Staten Island. Parcells is up there with Springsteen, Tony Soprano in terms of the greatest bosses in the history of New Jersey. And what's his favorite baseball team?
He grew up when he was a kid and in his adolescence liking the Boston Red Sox. And one time, someone at a press conference said to him something to the effect of, well, you must be a Yankee fan. And he shot back at him and he goes, I wouldn't root for the Yankees if they were playing Poland. And I have no idea why he said that, but that's what he said.
Could be a Cold War reference. I don't know. Okay.
That sounds like Parcells, doesn't it? Yeah.
Let's get to, again, the Honda Insider Report.
How about those Browns?
I can't believe that, because it essentially is that is it as simple as, with all of the Ivy League degrees in that front office, they did not know how to execute a trade on a deadline?
Tony
of the National
Grossi of
Football League?
ESPN Cleveland told me something this morning that absolutely, it just hit me between the eyes. He goes, this administration led by Sashi Brown, since these guys were put in place, they've made 17 trades. So they would know the mechanics of making a trade. Rich, I think this all came down to the fact that somebody made a mistake at the end. I don't believe that it was this side of the building saying to Hugh Jackson, we're going to screw you on this and not give you the quarterback who you want. Otherwise, they would never have called the Bengals at 3:55 and said, okay, the deal's on, let's go. Now, they wouldn't have done that because, again, they were going to look like gigantic fools when it didn't go through.
What would they have looked like if it had gone through, do you think?
They would have looked a lot. They would have looked a lot better, even though they probably would have overpaid. And because, Rich, here's my feeling about this. I don't think the Patriots involved the Browns in Jimmy Garoppolo.
At all,
I
right?
don't think. I mean,
I don't think so either.
I don't think they involved the Browns. Let's just say.
Did they involve anyone in the AFC at all?
I don't think so. And you're on the right track. What you're thinking, but you're also thinking. I mean, think of it this way: that if you go to San Francisco, you know that there's a good chance that Don Yee, the agent for Jimmy Garoppolo, is going to look pretty kindly on a long-term contract along with Garoppolo with the 49ers. I wrote a story yesterday at the MMQB. Jimmy Garoppolo was, to put it mildly, euphoric at getting traded to San Francisco. I don't think he would have been. He might have said all the right things if he got traded to Cleveland, but he would not have been euphoric. He was euphoric going because he knows that Kyle Shanahan had the 7th best offense in NFL history last year in Atlanta, that they have a 6-year contract, he and John Lynch, that there's a history there, and that eventually, and they've got some really good building blocks on defense. And he thinks if you got to go to a bad team, that's the best bad team you could go to.
I said yesterday on this show, Peter, that how many quarterbacks in this league have had their careers derailed, delayed, or completely ruined by the fact that they did not have continuity at an offensive coordinator or head coaching position.
Absolutely.
And he's got to know. I mean, that's a 6-year
Josh
contract
McCown
for
told
both
me
those
on my
guys.
podcast about 3 weeks ago that in the last 23 seasons that he's played the sport of football, he's had a different offensive coordinator or coach every time. He's never had the same 2 years in a row. Think about that.
That's crazy.
Think about that.
Yeah.
The Hartford Colonials, Chris Palmer. But let me just say one other thing about the Browns and all this. And you're going to say, oh, my God, they overpaid for A.J. McCarron. Look, when you're talking about quarterbacks, all bets are off. And you know that the Cleveland Browns are still going to use a high 1 next year, probably the first pick in the draft, on some quarterback. We just don't know who it's going to be. Let's just say that for the sake of argument, it's Josh Rosen. You're hearing more and more now Sam Darnold, who probably doesn't want any part of Cleveland, is talking about privately going back to USC for another year.
I don't believe that.
But whether he does or not, whatever.
Sure.
The Browns are going to take a quarterback there. So let's just say for the sake of argument, Hugh Jackson is the coach of the team next year, which I still believe is the case. Okay, so why not have Hugh Jackson with a quarterback he's comfortable with, but who's probably not the long-term guy, but makes it so that Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, whoever it is, Baker Mayfield, whoever is the guy, doesn't feel that kind of pressure, that he knows that even if he's not ready on Labor Day, he's the quarterback on Labor Day. Just give him the time to get into the job and to actually earn the job. And that's what A.J. McCarron would be, probably a placeholder for the next guy. But in case he had to play, maybe he would be Jacoby Brissett, somebody who's good enough to be a starter, but maybe you have somebody better than him.
Peter King in the Honda Insider Report here on the Rich Eisen Show. I'm just wondering what the Bengals are thinking right now, because they never made a trade with the Browns. Ever.
I think they're highly angry
They gotta be
at this, because now, I listened to Marvin Lewis on Sirius XM, and he was like, he kept getting asked questions about it, and finally, it's like you could hear it in his voice. If you ask me one more question about that, I'm going to hang up. But that's what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
They're going to get all these questions. And, the Bengals, they don't want their backup quarterback to think that, oh, yeah, we tried to dump you. I mean, they just want to dump him, and I don't even mean dump that. But if you're going to have the guy on your team, you don't want the guy to think, oh, yeah, we were willing to get rid of you.
Well, I mean, and McCarron has handled it great. He's handled everything great. He handled the booze for Dalton great earlier this year. He's been terrific, where he said he was going to go to Mike Brown and say, look, I understand you could get a 2 and a 3 for me, and I also understand I want to play football, so I would have been excited to go there. So putting the toothpaste back in the tube there is, I think, a lot easier than Browns fans trying to figure out, okay, so Wentz is not a top 20 quarterback. Deshaun Watson, let's trade out of that spot so the Texans can find their unicorn. Let's keep going down this list of quarterbacks that we just either couldn't acquire, but A.J. McCarron, let's put our chip on him halfway through Deshaun Kaiser's attempt. I mean, it really is mind-boggling to me that the Browns still can't get this thing right. And I know Browns fans might be out there thinking, yeah, well, it's typical Cleveland. But this is a totally different crack at it, Peter. I mean,
I don't. If I were the Browns, I would have traded a 2 and a 3 for A.J. McCarron.
Really?
You know what? Yeah, I would have. You want to know why?
Sure.
Because all this time you've done nothing but stockpile draft picks and pass on quarterbacks.
But then you hit the win it now button on A.J. McCarron.
You're not hitting the win it now button on A.J. McCarron. You were saying we'll take A.J. McCarron because we have severe doubts that Deshaun Kaiser can be anything. Anything.
Before we take our first break here, why do you think the trade deadline was so unique as to previous NFL trade deadline? This felt like an NBA or Major League Baseball trade deadline.
There's 2 reasons. I mean, I had a really interesting conversation with a very progressive general manager. He goes, I chalk it up to one thing, information. He said that every single thing is documented so much better than it was, say, even 10 years ago. You can follow everything in real time on Twitter. You can see video. You can do everything. There's very few secrets anymore. If you're going to go, as one team did, trading for Kelvin Benjamin, you know about his little peccadillos. You know all that stuff. And I think the one other thing is, Rich, there's a lot of young general managers who aren't just going to do what their grandfathers did, okay? They say, Brandon Beane says, why should I have to, do what Buddy Nix did? Why should I have to do it that way? I know that we can be better because we're probably not going to keep Marcel Darius at the end of this year. So if I can get anything for him above a conditional pick, let's just take it. I know that Kelvin Benjamin has a few off-field issues, but I also know that in our offense, I believe he can be a franchise #1 receiver. So a 3 and a 7 or whatever they had to pay, it's a great deal. So they're not constrained by, oh my God, the sacredness of draft choices. They say, can this make our team better? And the one other thing I would just say, John Schneider, who is to me one of them, probably the most aggressive general manager in the NFL since Bobby Beathard. He never met a trade he didn't like. And so I know that every year John Schneider, if he doesn't do anything, he will have made 22 phone calls to try to do something.
When we come back, Peter, I want to ask you a couple of questions. One about Kelvin Benjamin, about his readiness for tonight. I know there's a lot of fantasy football players that are out there.
I don't know the answer to that, but you
can
ask me anyway.
I was going to tease. So then here's the other tease. I want your midseason Super Bowl prediction. Don't give me that.
What about midseason MVP?
Well, I want
to do that?
Yeah, sure.
All right,
we'll do that.
Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show.
We are here in New York City. Peter King of the MMQB.com sitting to my right here on the Rich Eisen Show. So best you can tell, does Benjamin get any snaps tonight, do you believe, for the Bills?
I don't understand why they wouldn't play him.
Right? At the very least.
Why not play him? He should play. By the way,
yes.
How weird would it be if he doesn't get hurt? How weird would it be a guy playing 17 regular season games?
I know.
Is that kind of weird?
Yeah.
Hey, by the way,
yes,
I didn't say this before, but this mug right here, it's not going to be here when you take inventory at the end of the day.
Take it.
It's going to be stolen. I'm going to do it very, very stealthily.
Well,
okay.
Actually, you just called your shot like Babe Ruth.
Wow.
But please take it. The mugs are
it's
like a very
cute
popular
mug.
item.
Have you seen it?
Well,
has your crowd seen it?
Yeah, they love it. The Rich Eisen Show mug. It's substantial
too. The logo is fantastic.
It's substantial, and you're a coffee guy.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna have my coffee in it tomorrow.
Please,
my Starbucks Italian.
And please
roast.
tweet out a picture of you to your 19 billion followers holding it too, and at Rich Eisen Show.
You know what? A lot of those followers have to be bots.
Have you not?
We can check.
They gotta be.
You check
By the way,
for
we can
check
check
for them right now.
They gotta be ridiculous.
It's a service we'll provide for Peter King.
I mean, I can't believe that there's 1.8 million people who actually see my stupid tweets.
What is it? SI_?
SI_ Peter King.
Stand by.
See,
there's absolutely no way it can be
This
that.
is what we provide to guests.
Oh,
a mug and finding out how many of your followers are bots.
Hey, let's talk football while we're getting the bots. How many bots?
What is your
Do we know?
What is your half season MVP? Hold on a minute. Hold that off for a second, Brock.
Well, I would give it to Carson Wentz. I'd give it to Carson Wentz. Emerging star, most important player on the team with the best record in football. And if they didn't have him, they would be 2-6 instead of 7-1. I'd have Brady #2 because he defies every stereotype that there ever was. And I'd probably have Alex Smith #3. I really have great admiration for Alex Smith. After the first game of the year, Tony, I was sitting with Andy Reid recording something for my podcast, and this was an hour after the game ended, and he told me that day that Alex Smith had been really, really focused on bettering himself in the deep passing game, which showed up in that first game of the year to Tyreek Hill, and has showed up ever since, all season long. And I just think that Alex Smith, even though you could argue that Kareem Hunt would take away some of his shine, so to speak, I've got great respect for how Alex Smith is playing.
I've got 90 seconds left. Your Super Bowl prediction right now would be?
I would take Philadelphia and New England, but I might. Oh boy, I'll tell you one thing. I really like what I'm seeing out of the Steelers lately,
too.
Especially if Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown are healthy in January.
And Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah, it's going to be it'll be very hard to beat Pittsburgh. And New England, how about New England? After they come back from their bye, they got 5 of 6 on the road, including at Denver with that great defense. And what a quarterback in Brock Osweiler.
Nice.
And they play in Mexico City
against the
Raiders in a game that the Raiders are going to have because they're going to have every one of their games. And they also play at Miami. Who knows?
Right.
And they play at Pittsburgh.
That's week 15.
They got a tough schedule.
How many bots does he have, Chris?
8 jillion.
Yeah, it looks like you're about 65% real people.
You're
65% real. What does that mean? Is that good or bad?
I think that's better than average. Yeah, it's better than average. Yeah.
Because if you've been on that, I've been on there since April of 2009. My question is, how many people maybe followed me a long time ago and now maybe they're dead?
I don't know.
I don't know. When you
Well done,
die,
Peter.
they don't eliminate your Twitter account. How do they monitor that?
Good
So all the deceased
real
people
dark.
out there, they all follow me still.
Peter King here on the Rich Eisen Show.
For more Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Rich Eisen Show app.